In the silence of the night beneath the boundless sky, where dreams take flight, there are stories waiting. Stories of courage, sacrifice, and valor. From the first light of dawn to the final moments of twilight, in every heartbeat and every breath, these stories shape our world and touch our lives, weaving reality and heroism into the fabric of our communities. At Soul Studios, creativity knows no bounds and imagination is limitless. Every frame is a tribute to those who brave the flames, to the magic of human resilience. Join us as we step into the fire, into the heart of bravery itself. These are the stories of those who stand unwavering on the thin red line, heroes whose tales deserve to be told. Soul Studios proudly presents Into the Fire, the Thin Red Line Chronicles.
Firefighter Frank DiLeo pressed himself flat against the scalding hallway floor, blinded by black smoke as the inferno roared above him. Heat hammered his gear, threatening to cook him alive, but he inched forward without hesitation. Somewhere ahead in the darkness of that burning Brooklyn apartment, a family's lives hung in the balance. Just minutes earlier, the pre-dawn quiet of Brooklyn had been shattered by the clanging alarm bells in the firehouse. Ladder Company 102 and Engine 235 roared to life, racing through silent streets toward a reported blaze at a brownstone on Willoughby Avenue. As Ladder 102's truck screeched to a halt in front of the address, Captain Joseph McHugh and his firefighters were met with a dire sight. Thick, black smoke pouring from the first-floor apartment of a 4-story brownstone, and flames already licking out of the front windows. Neighbors on the sidewalk were screaming that a family was trapped inside. Frank DiLeo jumped off the rig and pulled on his facepiece, sealing the air mask to his face. A Halligan was in his hand, ready to force entry. He and his officer rushed to the building's entrance under the front stoop. Thick smoke seeped from the edges of the door. With a few swift swings and a pry, they popped the front door open. A blast of blistering heat and dark smoke exploded out, as if the house itself were breathing fire. Staying low, Frank ducked and crawled inside. He expected a narrow hallway, but instead found one wide open space. The building had been renovated and the walls that once divided the rooms were gone. In their place was a single massive furnace of heat. Fire from the front living room rolled unimpeded toward the entry, forcing Frank to drop flat to find any breathable air near the floor. Blinded by the smoke, he moved by instinct, heading toward the rear where the bedrooms should be. If the family was anywhere, it would be back there. He heard Captain McHugh shouting for Engine 235 to get a hose line in, but there was no water on the fire yet, and he couldn't wait. Trusting his team to back him up, Frank plunged deeper into the burning apartment, the fire raging all around him. Without warning, a wave of flame rolled over his head. The superheated smoke had ignited in a flashover. In an instant, the living room erupted, and the front of the apartment became an inferno. Frank felt the searing blast behind him. There was no going back the way he came. Gritting his teeth, he pushed onward through the hellish heat until his shoulder bumped into a door frame at the far end of the apartment. He had reached a rear bedroom. Inside the bedroom, the air was a fraction cooler. Frank swept his hand through the thick smoke and touched a limp human form, an unconscious woman on the floor. The mother, he thought, hoping he wasn't too late. He keyed his radio and shouted, "Ladder 102 to command. One unconscious adult victim in the rear bedroom." Then he grabbed the woman under the arms and began dragging her toward the faint glow of a window at the back. He smashed the glass and reached out, only to find metal bars on the outside. The window was secured with wrought iron security bars. There was no escape that way. Fire crackled in the hallway behind him, pushing closer. Frank used his boot to slam the bedroom door shut, trying to slow the encroaching flames. It gave him a few precious seconds. Turning back into the room, he dropped to the floor and continued his search by feel. Almost immediately, his gloved hand brushed against a small leg. A child lay on the floor. A boy, just a baby really, no more than 2 years old. Nearby, he found a second child, a little girl, maybe 5 or 6, also unconscious. Frank's heart pounded. Gently, he gathered both children into his arms, cradling their limp bodies against his chest. By now, the heat was becoming unbearable and the smoke was overwhelming. 3 victims, and himself, all in grave danger. Frank pressed the radio transmit button on his coat and yelled urgently, "Ladder 102 to command. I have 3 victims trapped in the rear bedroom. We're cut off by fire." Even as he made the call, he was already moving. Holding the 2 children close and gripping the back of the unconscious woman's shirt, he began crawling back the way he came, searching desperately for another way out. His body screamed from the effort and the searing heat inside his gear, but he refused to let go. If he didn't get these victims out in the next minute, they would all perish. His groping hand found a wall, then a doorknob. A door to what he prayed was the backyard. It was locked. Bracing himself, Frank jammed the Halligan into the frame and levered with every ounce of strength he had left. Wood cracked. From the other side of the door, he suddenly heard banging tools. Ladder 102's outside team had reached the rear and were forcing their way in. With a final heave, the door burst open in a shower of splinters and cool dawn air rushed inside. Frank nearly fell out into the backyard. 2 firefighters were there, silhouetted by the growing morning light. He thrust the 2 limp children into their arms. "Take them," he gasped. Then he and another firefighter lifted the unconscious mother and carried her out to safety. Outside, Frank collapsed to his knees on the grass, gulping fresh air, every muscle burning from exertion. Before he could catch his breath, a panicked shout rang out. "There's another kid inside!" Frank's stomach dropped at the news of a 4th victim. Despite his own exhaustion, he turned and plunged back into the smoke-filled doorway without a second thought. By now, Engine 235's nozzle team had a hose line working, and they were beating back the flames in the front of the apartment. The once roaring inferno was now a haze of smoke and steam, but the rooms were still an oven. Frank forced himself forward, sweeping through what remained of the apartment interior. In a tiny bathroom off the hall, he found her. A 4-year-old girl curled unconscious on the tile floor, as if hiding from the horrors around her. Frank scooped the little girl into his arms. The path to the front door was clear enough now, so he carried her himself through the charred living room and out the front entrance of the building. Outside on the sidewalk, fresh morning light was breaking over Brooklyn. Frank emerged from the smoke and was met by the waiting EMS crew. He gently handed the child over to the paramedics. They whisked the girl to an ambulance, where her siblings and mother were already receiving oxygen and care. At last, the deadly ordeal was over. Frank's strength finally gave out. He sank down on the stoop, tearing off his mask and sucking in cool air. Around him, Engine 235 firefighters extinguished the remaining hotspots, and other members of Ladder 102 too were checking on the victims. In a matter of minutes, 4 lives had been pulled from the fire on Willoughby Avenue. Firefighter Frank DiLeo had risked everything to ensure that family survived, doing what every firefighter hopes to do when the alarm bell rings. In the aftermath of the rescue, all 4 victims were rushed to the hospital by EMS. The mother and 2 of her daughters eventually survived their harrowing ordeal. Tragically, the 2-year-old boy, the youngest of the children, succumbed to his severe smoke inhalation and burn injuries the next day. The loss of that child weighed heavily on the members of Ladder 102 and Engine 235. They had nearly snatched an entire family from death, but one life still slipped away. Back at the firehouse in the days that followed, Firefighter Frank DiLeo remained humble about his actions. His colleagues in Ladder 102, however, knew they had witnessed something extraordinary. Crawling into an inferno without a hose line, braving a flashover and searing heat, and single-handedly rescuing 4 people was true valor beyond the call of duty, a feat that ultimately gave 3 children and their mother a second chance at life. The department took notice as well. At the FDNY's Medal Day ceremony the next year, firefighter Frank DiLeo was honored with the Brooklyn Citizens Medal's Firefighter Louis Valentino Award for his bravery that June morning. In his dress uniform, Frank accepted the medal on behalf of Ladder 102 and all the members who battled that blaze. It was a fitting testament to his courage and his unwavering commitment to preserve life even at great personal risk. For Ladder 102, the rescue on Willoughby Avenue remains a defining story. both heartbreaking and inspiring. It exemplifies the extraordinary lengths firefighters will go to save lives. Firefighter Frank DiLeo's courage that day continues to inspire his fellow firefighters and stands as a testament to the spirit of the FDNY. In every flame there is a story. In every heartbeat, a legacy of courage. The thin red line is not just a symbol, it is a lifeline, carried by those who stand between chaos and safety. Thank you for joining us on this journey of bravery and sacrifice. If these stories moved you, honor them by subscribing, sharing, and keeping their memory alive, because courage deserves to be remembered. This is Soul Studios, Into the Fire, The Thin Red Line Chronicles.